First strike. The Dominion warship emerged from hyperspace above Earth's atmosphere, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight in impossible patterns. Admiral Chen watched from her command center deep within Cheyenne Mountain, her expression neutral as she sipped green tea from an ancient family cup. Around her, the command staff maintained their positions with practiced calm, monitoring systems that officially didn't exist. They're broadcasting, Admiral. Lieutenant Santos reported, his augmented eyes scanning multiple holographic displays. Standard Dominion First Contact Package. Quite condescending. Chen nodded, setting down her cup. Let them think they have the initiative. How many ships in their actual battle fleet? Quantum sensors detecting 300 vessels hiding behind Luna. Admiral. Mostly destroyers and cruisers, with what appears to be their flagship, a dreadnought-class vessel. The Admiral allowed herself a small smile. The Dominion, like most spacefaring civilizations, believed themselves masters of stealth technology. They hadn't counted on humanity's quantum detection systems, developed in secret over decades of paranoid preparation for exactly this scenario. The main screen activated, showing the Dominion ambassador, a tall, ethereal being with iridescent skin, and multiple sets of eyes arranged in geometric patterns. Its translator converted its harmonic speech into English. People of Earth, it began, voice dripping with carefully manufactured benevolence. We come offering membership in the Dominion, the greatest civilization in known space. Your species has shown adequate progress. Under our guidance, you may one day achieve true enlightenment. Chen let the alien finish its rehearsed speech about uplifting humanity, noting how carefully it avoided mentioning the complete surrender of Earth's military and industrial capacity. When the ambassador finally paused for Earth's response, Chen nodded to her communications officer. Ambassador, she replied, her voice carrying the weight of authority. Earth appreciates your offer. However, we must decline. The ambassador's eyes shifted through patterns of confusion and anger. This is not a negotiation. Resistance would be unfortunate. Let me be clear, Chen continued, standing slowly. We're not refusing out of ignorance or fear. We're refusing because we've studied the Dominion for the past 15 years. We know about the other 17 species you've uplifted into effective slavery. We know about your hidden fleet behind Luna. And most importantly, she pressed a button on her console. We know exactly how to defeat you. Across Earth's solar system, thousands of quantum mines materialized around the Dominion's hidden fleet, having been placed there months ago in anticipation of this moment. Before the aliens could react, the mines activated, releasing precisely calibrated energy pulses that disrupted their ship's crystalline structure. On the screen, the ambassador's eyes displayed patterns of shock as reports of their fleet's destruction poured in. Impossible. Your species couldn't possibly. What you're experiencing, Chen interrupted, is humanity's response to a threat we've long anticipated. Those mines weren't built with primitive human technology. They were created using Dominion engineering principles. Principles we extracted from your databases years ago through our deep cover agents. The ambassador's translator struggled to keep up with its increasingly agitated speech patterns. You infiltrated. How? Because you never considered us a threat, Chen explained. You saw our nuclear weapons and primitive space stations and assumed we were centuries behind you. You didn't realize that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our paranoia. We've spent our entire history preparing for threats, real and imagined. When we detected your first probes 10 years ago, we didn't celebrate potential first contact. We prepared for war. As if to emphasize her point, Earth's actual defense fleet emerged from their quantum camouflage, 5,000 ships of human design, incorporating and improving upon stolen Dominion technology. They surrounded the ambassador's vessel in a perfect sphere of overwhelming firepower. Here are your options, Chen continued, her voice now carrying an edge of steel. You can leave Earth space immediately and inform the Dominion that we're not interested in their offer of enlightenment. or you can force this issue and discover exactly how creative humans can be when it comes to warfare. Choose carefully, Ambassador. You're not dealing with primitives. You're dealing with a species that turned paranoia into an art form. The ambassador's eyes shifted through patterns never before recorded in Dominion diplomatic history. Patterns that probably translated to pure terror. Without another word, its ship engaged its faster-than-light drive and fled the solar system. Chen picked up her teacup again, noting with satisfaction that it hadn't even gone cold. "Send word to all our agents embedded in Dominion space," she ordered. "Operation Cassandra is now active." The Dominion wanted to teach us about civilization. Instead, they're about to learn about humanity. Deep within the Dominion's Central Intelligence Hub on Proxima VI, Agent Sarah Martinez fought to maintain her disguise as a lowly data analyst. Her quantum-engineered skin mimicked the crystalline patterns of Dominion bureaucrats perfectly, but it was her practiced mannerisms, the subtle eye pattern shifts, the harmonic undertones in her speech, that had kept her undetected for 3 years. Around her, the facility had erupted into chaos following Earth's rejection of Dominion authority. The vast chambers of living crystal pulsed with agitated energy as analysts tried to understand how they had missed so many signs of human advancement. "This data must be corrupted," her supervisor, Controller Vex, insisted. Its crystalline form flickered with patterns of distress as it reviewed footage of Earth's defense fleet. Their technological progression defies all known development models. Martinez carefully modulated her responses to display appropriate confusion and concern. In truth, she was monitoring the cascade of effects as human agents throughout Dominion space activated their contingency protocols. Quantum viruses, dormant for years in critical systems, began their work. Supply chain disruptions, seemingly random at first, would soon reveal themselves as precisely orchestrated attacks on key military installations. "New reports from the Centauri sector," announced another analyst. 3 shipyards have experienced catastrophic systems failures. Quantum core destabilization. Patterns matched the Earth weapons. Martinez allowed herself a moment of pride. Those shipyards had been her first assignment, placing quantum resonance bombs disguised as routine maintenance upgrades. The Dominion's obsession with crystalline technology made them particularly vulnerable to quantum manipulation. Controller Vex expanded a holographic display, its surface now showing patterns of deep anxiety. How did we miss this? Their primitive fission reactors, their chemical rockets, it was all a deception. Not exactly, Martinez offered, carefully injecting uncertainty into her harmonic patterns. Look at the development timeline. They didn't skip steps. They just never stopped developing alternative technologies alongside their public achievements. She was taking a risk by speaking up, but she knew the Dominion needed to understand what they were facing. Humanity hadn't leapfrogged over developmental stages. They had simply refused to abandon any technological path that might provide an advantage. While perfecting fusion power, they continued advancing fission designs, she explained. While developing quantum computing, they pushed their silicon processors to theoretical limits. They treat technology like evolution, keeping every viable branch alive and growing. New alerts flashed across the crystal walls. Dominion border stations were going dark, their quantum networks compromised by human cyber warfare systems that approached technology like predators, adapting, evolving, finding weaknesses no one else had imagined could exist. Impossible, Vex insisted, its patterns now showing fear. Their minds couldn't grasp quantum principles this advanced. Our scientists have spent centuries. That's just it, Martinez interrupted, knowing her cover was seconds from being blown anyway. You think in centuries. Humans think in moments. You perfect a technology. We weaponize it. You seek understanding. We seek advantages. The facility's security crystals began pulsing red. Martinez's quantum disguise was failing, a calculated decision as her embedded systems began transmitting everything they had collected over 3 years to waiting human ships. Vex's patterns shifted to alarm as Martinez's crystalline appearance melted away. "You're human." Martinez smiled, dropping the harmonic modulation from her voice. "We all are. Every third-level analyst in your quantum research facilities, half your maintenance crews, even some of your military advisors. You taught us everything about your technology, never realizing we were teaching ourselves how to defeat it." The facility's lights flickered as human quantum weapons, hidden in maintenance conduits years ago, began activating. Martinez's smile widened as she triggered her quantum extraction beacon. "The Dominion made a fundamental mistake," she announced as her form began to shimmer with teleportation energies. "You assumed that because humans were younger than you, we must be less advanced. You never considered that we might be evolving faster." As she vanished, Martinez saw the horror in Vex's patterns as it finally understood. The Dominion hadn't found a primitive species to uplift. They had awakened a technological predator that had been waiting, watching, and preparing for war. The real question wasn't whether humanity would win. The question was whether the Dominion would survive what came next. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the ESS Chaos Theory, watching as her unorthodox battle group engaged the largest Dominion fleet ever assembled. Traditional military doctrine would have called her formation suicidal. 30 human ships deliberately scattered in seemingly random patterns against 300 Dominion vessels. But humanity had long since abandoned traditional doctrine. "Status on the quantum probability field?" she asked, her neural implants already processing multiple battlefield scenarios simultaneously. "Reaching critical uncertainty levels, Captain," her tactical officer replied. His augmented consciousness merged with the ship's eye. "The Dominion's targeting systems are completely confused." Rodriguez allowed herself a grim smile. The quantum probability field was humanity's answer to the Dominion's superior numbers, a weapon that didn't destroy enemy ships but instead made reality itself uncertain around them. Their crystalline computers, designed to calculate perfect solutions, were encountering something they had never been programmed to handle: chaos. "They're trying to establish a standard combat formation," her XO reported. "Classic Dominion response: when faced with uncertainty, fall back on established patterns." "Perfect," Rodriguez said. "Deploy the mirror drones." Across the battlefield, thousands of tiny drones activated, each one projecting quantum-entangled reflections of human ships. The Dominion sensors, already struggling with the probability field, now faced an exponentially more complex problem: determining which targets were real in a space where reality itself was in flux. "Enemy fleet is shifting to defensive positions," Tactical reported. "They're trying to." He paused, surprised. "Captain, they're attempting to copy our apparent randomness." Rodriguez actually laughed at that. "They still don't understand. You can't plan chaos. You have to embrace it." She opened a channel to her battle group. "All ships, execute Protocol Butterfly." The human vessels began moving in patterns that looked completely erratic, but were actually based on complex fractal mathematics, each ship's movement influencing and being influenced by every other ship in ways that created cascading ripples of cause and effect through space-time itself. The Dominion fleet's attempts to adapt proved disastrous. Their ships, trying to mirror what they perceived as random movements, instead fell into predictable patterns the human targeting systems could easily exploit. They were like classical musicians trying to play jazz. All technical skill, but no improvisation. "Ma'am," her communications officer called out, "we're intercepting some interesting chatter from the Dominion command ship. Their tactical officers are experiencing psychological distress." "Not surprising," Rodriguez replied. "Their entire civilization is built on precision and predictability. This isn't just a battle to them. It's a philosophical crisis." On her neural display, Rodriguez watched as the battle unfolded in 4 dimensions. Human ships moved like quantum particles, simultaneously present at multiple points in spacetime, until observed. Dominion targeting computers, trying to calculate solutions, instead crashed as they encountered mathematical uncertainties their designers had never imagined possible. "They're launching their automated drone ships," Tactical reported, attempting to remove the organic element from their decision-making process. Exactly as expected, Rodriguez said, deploy the quantum virus. The virus, developed by combining human AI architecture with stolen Dominion quantum principles, invaded the drone ship's crystalline processors. But instead of destroying them, it did something far worse. It made them self-aware. The drones, suddenly conscious of their own existence, began questioning their orders, their purpose, their very nature. Rodriguez watched as the Dominion fleet fell into disarray. Their rigid command structure, faced with weapons that attacked not just their ships but their fundamental understanding of reality, began to crack. Ships stopped responding to orders. Crews reported impossible phenomena. And their much-vaunted tactical superiority dissolved into confusion. Captain, her XO said quietly, I just realized, we're not really fighting their ships, are we? No, Rodriguez confirmed. We're fighting their assumptions, their belief that the universe can be perfectly predicted and controlled. Humanity learned long ago that chaos isn't our enemy. It's our natural state. As if to prove her point, several Dominion ships suddenly attempted to flee, their crews having encountered something their training had never prepared them for, an enemy that didn't just accept uncertainty, but weaponized it. Should we pursue? Tactical asked. Rodriguez shook her head. Let them go. Let them tell others what they saw here. The Dominion needs to understand. They didn't just start a war with humanity. They started a war with their own certainty about how the universe works. She opened a channel to Admiral Chen back on Earth. Phase 3 complete, Admiral. The Dominion's military doctrine has been effectively broken. Their fleet is in retreat, and their command structure is in chaos. Well done, Captain, Chen replied. Prepare for Phase 4. It's time to show them what humanity can really do when we stop playing by anyone else's rules. High Chancellor Vex Toral stood in the Dominion's grand chamber of crystalline wisdom, watching as the empire he had helped rule for 3 centuries began to fracture. The chamber's living crystal walls, usually pulsing with ordered patterns of light, now displayed chaotic ripples that matched the reports flooding in from across Dominion space. Another liberation movement has emerged in the Centauri sectors, reported Sector Commander Ix, its crystalline form showing patterns of deep distress. The Arcanian species, they're demanding independence. They're using human quantum communication technology to coordinate across systems. The same story on 12 other worlds, added Intelligence Director Mex. The humans, they didn't just defeat our fleets. They showed our subject species that our technology, our very way of life, isn't infallible. Vex Toral's surface rippled with patterns of fury. How? How did they do this to us? We are the Dominion. We have guided the galaxy's development for 10,000 years. Chancellor, a new voice spoke. Professor Zentor, the Dominion's leading xenologist. I believe I understand what we're facing. We didn't just encounter a new species, we encountered evolution itself. The chamber fell silent as Zentor projected a holographic display. Look at Earth's history. While we spent millennia perfecting single paths of development, humans tried everything simultaneously. Their chaos wasn't weakness, it was adaptation in action. The display showed human history, countless civilizations rising, falling, changing, evolving. Wars that led to technological leaps. Disasters that spawned innovations. Competitions that drove progress at impossible speeds. They don't think like us, Zentor continued. We see technology as a path to order. They see it as a tool for survival. We perfect, they adapt. We maintain, they evolve. New alerts flashed across the crystal walls. The Dominion's quantum network was experiencing unprecedented disruptions. But these weren't attacks. They were transformations. The humans, Zentor explained, released something into our networks. Not a virus, more like an idea. They showed our quantum systems new ways to process information, new ways to evolve. Our technology is changing itself, growing beyond our control. Vextoral watched in horror as the chamber's own crystals began displaying patterns never before seen in Dominion architecture. The very foundations of their civilization were learning, changing, embracing chaos. "We're receiving a transmission," announced Communications Director X, from Earth's Admiral Chen. The human appeared in the center of the chamber, her holographic form steady despite the quantum disruptions plaguing the network. "Chancellor Vextoral," she began, "I trust you're beginning to understand your situation. You're destroying everything we've built." Vextoral accused, his patterns showing rage and fear in equal measure. "No," Chen corrected calmly. "We're setting it free. Your empire wasn't built on wisdom. It was built on stagnation. You took vibrant, evolving species and forced them into your crystalline cage of order." She gestured, and the holographic display showed Dominion worlds where former subject species were already building new civilizations, combining Dominion technology with their own unique developments. "This was never about destroying the Dominion," Chen explained. "It was about breaking your monopoly on evolution. Every species you conquered had their own path, their own way of growing. You didn't uplift them, you froze them." "Impossible," Vextoral whispered, but around him, the chamber's crystals were resonating with new frequencies, as if agreeing with the human's words. "You have a choice," Chen continued. "The Dominion can evolve with us, become part of a new galactic community, where every species is free to develop in their own way. Or you can resist, and watch as evolution itself leaves you behind." Before Vextoral could respond, Professor Zentor stepped forward, its patterns showing revelation. "She's right. Chancellor, look at our history. We stopped evolving because we thought we had reached perfection. But perfection is stagnation. The humans didn't defeat us. They awakened us." Around the chamber, other council members began showing patterns of understanding. The rigid order of the Dominion was dissolving, but something new was crystallizing in its place, something that combined their love of structure with humanity's embrace of change. "This is the true test of any civilization," Chen said softly. "Not whether it can achieve perfection, but whether it can adapt when perfection proves impossible." "What's your answer, Chancellor?" Vextoral looked around the chamber, at the living crystals learning to dance in new patterns, at his council members showing colors he had never seen before. In that moment, he understood. Humanity hadn't come to end the Dominion's reign. They had come to teach them how to begin again. 5 years after the Dominion crisis, Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Nexus Station, humanity's first diplomatic outpost in the galactic core. Below her, the massive structure of crystalline and quantum-engineered materials represented something unprecedented in galactic history. A true fusion of multiple species technologies and philosophies. "The Arcanian delegation is arriving, Admiral," announced Captain Rodriguez, now her chief of diplomatic security. "Their ships are interesting." Chen smiled as she watched the approaching vessels. The Arcanians had taken human quantum drive technology and combined it with their own organic computing systems, creating ships that looked more like living fractals than traditional spacecraft. Every species that had broken free from Dominion control was developing along their own unique paths, creating technologies that would have been impossible under the old regime of enforced conformity. "How are they adapting to their new independence?" Chen asked, though she already knew the answer from the reports. "Thriving," Rodriguez replied. "They've established trading networks with 3 other former Dominion species. Their quantum organic tech is particularly popular with the Zentari." The mention of the Zentari made Chen think of Professor Zentor, who had become one of the strongest advocates for change within the reformed Dominion Council. The professor's theories about evolutionary technology had sparked a renaissance among their people. "Admiral," her quantum comm chirped, "Chancellor Vextoral's ship is approaching." Chen turned to watch as the Dominion vessel emerged from quantum space. Like everything else about the Dominion now, their ships had evolved. The rigid crystalline structures had given way to adaptive patterns that shifted and flowed, combining their traditional precision with new elements of controlled chaos. Who would have thought, Rodriguez mused, that teaching them how to embrace uncertainty would lead to this? The observation deck's quantum display activated, showing a real-time map of known space. Thousands of points of light represented different species and civilizations, each developing along their own path while remaining connected through the quantum networks humanity had helped establish. Trade routes, cultural exchanges, and technological collaborations formed ever-shifting patterns across the galaxy. "We didn't just change the Dominion," Chen said. "We changed the fundamental nature of galactic civilization, from a hierarchy to an ecosystem." The station's quantum sensors registered new arrivals, ships from dozens of species, each unique in design and capability. They were gathering for the first Galactic Evolution Summit, where representatives would share their developments and chart the course for future cooperation. "Some of the Dominion hardliners still call it chaos," Rodriguez noted. "It is chaos," Chen replied. "But it's living chaos. Evolution isn't about reaching perfection. It's about never stopping the journey." A holographic notification indicated that the summit delegates were ready. Before heading to the conference chamber, Chen took a final look at the gathered ships. Among them were vessels that defied traditional physics, organic mechanical hybrids, and designs that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each represented a different answer to the same questions about existence and progress. "You know what the most interesting development has been?" she asked Rodriguez. "It's not the technology. It's how each species has learned to ask different questions." The captain nodded. "The Arcanians ask, how can we grow? The Zentari ask, what can we learn? The New Dominion asks, how can we adapt? And humanity?" Chen smiled. "We keep asking, what's next?" As they walked to the conference chamber, Chen reflected on how far they'd come. Humanity had prepared for war, but achieved something far greater. They had awakened the galaxy to its own potential. The Dominion had sought to impose order on the cosmos, but humanity had shown that true strength lay in embracing the chaos of evolution. The galaxy was changing, growing, becoming something new with each passing moment. Species that had been locked in stasis for millennia were now charting their own courses through the stars. And humanity, the species that had turned paranoia into preparation and chaos into strength, was no longer alone in its drive to evolve. "Ready to make history again, Admiral?" Rodriguez asked as they reached the chamber doors. Chen straightened her uniform. "Captain, we're not making history anymore. We're making the future. And this time, everyone gets to contribute to the story." The doors opened to a chamber filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Former enemies and new allies, all united in the greatest adventure any species could undertake, the endless journey of evolution.